Today, we're going to talk about the truly incredible life of Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. This is a man who went from the most humble of beginnings to become not just a brilliant scientist, but also the 11th president of India, and maybe more importantly, a man beloved by an entire nation.
And this one quote, it just perfectly sums up his entire philosophy. If you want to shine like a sun, first burn like a sun. He really lived this. It's all about the relentless hard work, the sheer dedication, and the passion that drove him every single day. It's the perfect setup for his story.
So here's the big question we're really digging into. How on earth does a young boy selling newspapers on the street become one of the most important figures in his country's history? How do you earn the nicknames the Missile Man and the People's President? Well, let's find out.
To understand the man, we have to go right back to the beginning. And his story doesn't start in a fancy lab or a grand political office. Nope, it starts in a small coastal town with a kid who is just hungry for knowledge.
So picture this. It's 1931. He's born into a large family that really didn't have much. His dad was a boatman and money was tight. So by the time he was just 10 years old, young Kalam was out there selling newspapers to help his family get by. But here's the thing that made him different. For him, it wasn't just a job. Before he'd sell a single copy, he would read the entire newspaper front to back. He was just soaking up information, feeding this incredible curiosity that would, really define his entire life.
In those early years, they weren't just about struggling to make ends meet. They were packed with these powerful, formative experiences that completely shaped how he saw the world.
Okay, so get this. He's in the 5th grade, sitting next to his best friend in class. A new teacher comes in, sees him, a Muslim boy, sitting next to a high-caste Hindu friend, and immediately orders Kalam to the back of the classroom. Now, an experience like that could make anyone better, right? But for Kalam, it sparked something else entirely.
And this is what he took from it. The best brains of the nation may actually be found on the last benches of the classroom. He didn't see that back bench as a place of shame. He saw it as a place of hidden, untapped potential. He literally turned a moment of painful discrimination into a philosophy that he carried with him for the rest of his life.
It was also around this time that one single classroom experience lit a fire in him, a dream that would, quite literally, take him to the skies. His teacher was trying to explain the physics of flight from a textbook, and the kids just weren't getting it. So what does he do? He takes the entire class down to the beach. And as they all watched the seabirds soaring and gliding, he explained the principles of aerodynamics right there in real time. For Kalam, that wasn't just a lesson, it was an epiphany. He knew, in that exact moment, that his life had to be about the science of flight.
Now, that passion was seriously put to the test when he got to college. A professor flat out rejected his aircraft design project. And then he gave him this impossible ultimatum. Come up with a brand new, better design in just 3 days or you lose your scholarship. Kalam didn't complain, he didn't sleep, he just worked for 72 hours straight. And when he turned in the new model, his professor was just blown away. Not just by the design, but by that sheer force of will. It was a preview of the man he was becoming.
So after college, this was it. The big moment. He was right on the edge of achieving his life's dream, becoming a fighter pilot. He applied to the Indian Air Force. This was everything he had been working towards since that day on the beach. And there were only 8 spots open.
He was ranked 9th, just 1 spot short. Can you imagine that feeling? The dream he had poured his entire life into was just gone. It was absolutely devastating for him, one of the lowest points in his life.
But here's the thing about Dr. Kalam. This crushing failure, it became one of his most important turning points. He came to believe that sometimes our biggest disappointments are really just life redirecting us to where we're actually meant to be. This didn't end his journey with flight. It just changed the vehicle.
And wow, what a destiny it turned out to be. So he couldn't fly a plane himself. Instead, he decided to make the entire nation fly, becoming the driving force behind India's entire space and missile program.
So he joins India's defense and space organizations and starts climbing the ladder. But his most powerful lesson in leadership came, once again, from a massive failure. In 1979, he was the project director for India's first ever satellite launch vehicle, the SLV-3. After a decade of work by his team, the rocket lifted off and then crashed into the sea. It was a huge public failure.
But what happened next was a masterclass in true leadership. At the press conference, with the whole world watching, the chairman of the space organization, a man named Satish Dhawan, stepped up to the microphone and took all of the blame himself. He completely shielded his team. But then 1 year later, when they tried again and succeeded, Dhawan pushed Dr. Kalam forward and told him, "You go handle the press conference." That lesson was unforgettable. A great leader takes the blame for failure and gives away the credit for success.
And armed with that piece of wisdom, he went on to lead some of India's most important and most sensitive defense projects. We're talking about the Agni and Prithvi missiles, and he was a key figure in the Pokhran-2 nuclear tests. His work completely transformed India's defense capabilities and earned him that famous title, the Missile Man of India.
After decades as one of the nation's top scientists, you'd figure he'd earned a nice, quiet retirement, right? Well, the country had one more, even bigger job for him.
In 2002, he was actually teaching at a university, just enjoying being back in academics. Then, he gets a phone call. It's the Prime Minister on the other end, basically telling him that the ruling party and the opposition had agreed. They all wanted him to be the next president of India. It came completely out of the blue. He asked for 2 hours to think it over.
And in those 2 hours, he wasn't thinking about the power or the fancy title. He realized that the presidency was the single biggest platform he could ever have to work on his ultimate dream, seeing India become a fully developed nation. So he accepted, and just like that, the boy who sold newspapers became the 11th president of India.
But even from the highest office in the country, his heart was always in the classroom. He was famous for being incredibly accessible, especially to students. He always said his greatest honor wouldn't be Mr. President, but simply being remembered as a good teacher. That tells you everything about where his true passion was. And that brings us to the final chapter of his remarkable life. A chapter that was, really, the most fitting end you could possibly imagine.
On July 27, 2015, at 83 years old, Dr. Kalam was standing on a stage giving a lecture to a room full of university students. And in the middle of his talk, he collapsed from a heart attack. He passed away right there, doing the one thing he loved more than anything else. He was a teacher until his very last breath, giving us all one final lesson on living a life filled with purpose.
From the kid who read every newspaper before selling it, to the scientist who learned more from failure than success, to the president who just wanted to be a good teacher. His life is just this incredible blueprint for resilience, for humility, and for unwavering dedication. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Of all the lessons from Dr. Kalam's life, which one will you take with you?